Hey, Professor Carafit here with a quick primer on tree terminology to help you use your dichotomous key this week. So dichotomous keys are really important to learn how to use because you're going to be using them throughout any kind of biological career that involves identification. So let's say you go into consulting or you go work at the Game and Fish Commission or you're involved in ecology. In fact, when you take the course in ecology here at UCA, you will likely use a dichotomous key. It's a key that gives questions in pairs, and you pick which one of those pairs is most applicable to your plant, and it will tell you what to do next, and you follow that pattern until you reach an answer. But you have to know some of the terminology that the key uses in order to be successful. Now, all of the trees that we are going to be keying, if you look at the lab website, you'll see a map of where they're located. They're located to the north side and to the west side of the Lewis Science Center, like between Lewis and Ferris, and behind Lewis, back by the greenhouses. That's where most of the trees are located. They should be flagged. They should be flagged with a number on them. Hopefully those flags aren't tampered with, but we'll get those flagged so you can figure out which one's tree number 1, 2, and 3, and so on. Now, when you're keying things out, it's going to ask you questions about whether it's a tree or a shrub. A tree is big and tall. A shrub is going to be like the height that you are. And it's going to ask you about leaf type. So let's look at some of the different ways that leaves vary on trees. So simple leaf is like this here. We have a blade of the leaf and we have the petiole of the leaf. That's the stalk of the leaf. And where this leaf was attached to the stem, there would be a bud right here. See how there's the leaf. This is a simple leaf, and then there's a bud right there. That angle between the stem and leaf is called the axil of the leaf, and there's a bud always found in the axil of the leaf. A bud is just a dormant piece of the plant that can grow into a new branch or a new flower or something like that. Okay. Now, a compound leaf, this entire thing is a leaf, and these little parts are called leaflets. Okay, so a compound leaf, just imagine this entire thing right here being attached right here where the single leaf is. That whole thing would come off and all the leaflets would be up here, and there'd be another one here, 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 and here. So compound leaves have a single bud in the axil way down here and a bunch of individual leaflets. But that entire thing is considered a leaf. It's just divided into leaflets. So this is one leaf composed of leaflets. That's a compound leaf. And leaves can be found in a couple of different arrangements. If there's so let me give you some terminologies to help you understand. Where a leaf is attached to the stem is called a node. It's not a real structure, it's just like an area, right? And here you can see there's one leaf per node. This one comes off to the left, this one to the right, left, right, left, right. So those leaves are said to be alternate. There's one here and then one here, right? Now, opposite leaves, you have two leaves at a node where they're attached two at a time on that node. And then occasionally you'll even have plants that have whorled leaves, which is where there's more than two attached at a node in a whorled fashion around the stem. Okay, so typically trees are either alternate or opposite. Occasionally they'll have whorled leaves. Some more tree terminology. This shows some of the same stuff, but I just want to show you. Here's an example once again of a compound leaf. You probably won't have to use this terminology, but technically speaking, the stalk of the leaf here on a compound leaf is called the rachis, and down here it's called the stipe. I don't think your key is going to make you use that for anything I'm going to have you key out, but just so you know, in case you run into that terminology, that's what it's talking about. This is showing you an axillary bud here, the bud in the axil of a leaf, to help you understand that simple leaves have a bud in the axil, and compound leaves also have a bud right there. If each one of these leaves had a bud right there, each one of these leaflets had a bud right there, then these would all be leaves, but they're not. They're part of a bigger leaf called a compound leaf. Okay. Now, this kind of a compound leaf is called a pinnately compound leaf. Pinnately compound leaves kind of look like a feather, whereas palmately compound leaves are compound leaves that have leaves all attached to one point, kind of like fingers on a palm. So that's palmately compound versus pinnately compound. And just so you know, occasionally trees have bipinnately compound leaves. I don't think I'm going to have you key those either, but here's an example of pinnately compound leaves, whereas the bud would be down here, and all of this is a leaf, and it has lots of levels of branching. Kind of interesting. Of course, a lot of conifers have needle or scale-shaped leaves, so you can see that information there. By the way, the link right here, this is a really good link if you get stuck and you want some more terminology. There's a lot of great pictures at that website at the bottom of the screen. Other characteristics that your book might ask you, this one shows a lot of them as well, like opposite, alternate, so on and so forth, different terms you might see. The key we're using is pretty simple, so it doesn't use all of those terms. But I do want to point out that your book will talk about margins, or your key, and it might talk about serrate leaves, which are toothed, or doubly serrate, where there's big teeth, and those big teeth have little teeth on them. So it may ask you questions about the margins or the edge of the leaf. Is it toothed? Does it have great big lobes? You know, what do you see on the edges of that leaf? And so there's some terminology to help you with that. If you run into a word that I haven't covered here or doesn't fit with one of these pictures, Google it. You'll find it pretty easily. Another set of questions you might run into are what are the orientation of leaves what are the orientation of the veins on that leaf? So veins, just like leaves, can be pinnate, where there's like a main vein and then little veins coming off like on a feather, or they could be palmate veins, where they all come from one central point and arch around the leaf. So veins can come in different types, and there are some images of that here. And on the lab website, I have a link to one of the websites that shows you some of this terminology in case you run into words that you don't quite understand while you're trying to key. Okay, but I've picked 5 trees for you to try to key out. You're going to take a selfie with those trees, so you're going to pull down a branch, or if it's above your head, you know, hold the camera in front of you so you can see the leaves. So you're going to key them out. You're going to write down what steps of the key you used to get to that answer, and you'll take a selfie with the tree to prove you were there. Okay, and you're going to put that all into a document and turn it into your instructor.